Hello everyone at the Toffee Blues, my name is Don Bett and I'm from the Fulhamish podcast looking ahead to this weekend's game at Goodison Park. Thoughts on Fulham this season? It's better than anyone was expecting. I guess you can definitely say that. I mean, to sit on 39 points with sort of 9 games to go is different to what Fulham have seen, and probably our best Premier League season in well over a decade now, probably looking at 2011, 2012 era. So yeah, I can't complain with the season so far. It has petered out in the last few weeks with 3 or 4 back-to-back defeats, but overall the season we can't complain. Before the season started, many Fulham fans would have taken 17th place on goal difference at the start of the season, so there can't really be too many complaints so far. Thoughts on Marco Silva this season and his reign so far? I mean, it's been superb. He joined, obviously, last summer when we were in the Championship after Scott Parker left by mutual consent after falling out of the owners and joining Bournemouth. And, he really just got Fulham fans liking this Fulham team again. Under Scott Parker, yes, he got us promoted in a playoff win against our local rivals Brentford, but the Premier League season was boring, it was turgid, we ended up getting relegated. He probably should have kept that team up, especially at the end of the season when, and then he took over last season and he just changed the way we play football. He changed the mood around the club. All you got to do is look at last season with the amount of goals he was scoring. Scoring 7 sort of twice, 6 goals 3 or 4 times. Mitrovic breaking the Championship or Division 1 record, getting over 40 goals across the season. I can't really complain with what Marco Silva's done so far. We in previous Premier League campaigns, in our 3 previous Premier League campaigns, we've ended up getting relegated. And it's sort of the first time we've stuck with the manager at the start of the season, and I'm probably going to end with him at the end of the season. So it's nice to see just a bit of consistency. You won't have any Fulham fans really have any bad words to say about Marco Silva and the job he's done so far. I think he needed this job as well, though, after what transpired at Watford and Everton. Since then he's not really had anything major, so I think he needed this job as much as Fulham needed Marco Silva to turn the club's fortunes around. Looking at the Mitrovic and Silva ban fiasco, obviously both the manager and the player deserve bans. You can't have Marco Silva mouthing off the referee and Mitrovic grabbing the referee's arm and pointing in his face, but I think it's just crazy the outrage there's been about this incident compared to what we see in the Premier League every single week. Marco Silva, he probably told the referee to F off after he started looking at VAR, and Mitrovic obviously grabbing the referee's arm. But I think people are looking at it in regard to, the Willian penalty decision, as opposed to actually what they're angry about. They're angry about, in the first half, we get a stonewall penalty that's not even looked at by VAR, where Mitrovic is pushed by Luke Shaw. It's Chris Kavanagh, who we had earlier on in the season against West Ham United away, which he lost 3-1, where their first goal was a dodgy penalty decision where their player ran into Andres Pereira, I think it was Craig Dawson, and they got a penalty for that. Then their second and third goals were both handball. The ball bounced up and hit Skamaka on the hand for the second, and then for the third goal, Antonio's like this, and he sort of catches the ball mid-air, and then absolutely nothing is given. And as far as I'm concerned, the rule is, whenever it hits your arm or your hand and it leads directly to a goal, it should be disallowed. And yeah, it's just Chris Kavanagh in general. He did this over last season against Preston away from home when we drew 1-1, where Ched Evans seemed to hit his arm twice and go in. So I think it was just building up against Chris Kavanagh. And then as soon as Man United get a decision, he goes to VAR and looks. I think they feel like there was sort of an agenda against not necessarily just Fulham, but big teams at their home grounds tending to get the decisions, I guess you can say. And the Mitrovic ban, I mean, come on, 8 games, I think is absolutely ludicrous. Absolutely ludicrous. All he does is grab the referee's arm and points in the referee's face. Yes, that is a ban, and I think an extended ban was needed, but not 8 games. I think, obviously, the original ban for it would have been 3 games. I think no more than 6 would have sufficed. People talk about Mitrovic. He's got a reputation which he doesn't deserve. It was his first red card in 7 years. It's his first red card for Fulham, and he's been here since the January of 2018. And we're now past January 2023. So he's got past that stage. If this was an Andres Pereira, a Willian, or a Bobby Reed doing what Mitrovic did, they simply wouldn't have got the ban that he did. It's because he's this big 6-foot-plus scary Serbian striker. And there's this idea that he has a temper which he can't control, which is a load of rubbish, because the only other time he's really lost his temper for Fulham was in the 2018 playoff final against Aston Villa. So I think a 4 or 5 game, maybe 6 game ban would have sufficed, but 8 I think is absolutely ludicrous, especially what we've been seeing in recent weeks. You saw what Robinson and Trent and Henderson were doing to the referee in the Liverpool-Arsenal game previous weekend. You look at even just a weekend after Mitrovic's red card after international break, you had Nottingham Forest players surrounding the same referee and nothing happening. I'm not saying Mitrovic should got off lightly. I'm saying there's just no consistency with decisions, and it seems Mitrovic has been made a scapegoat for people thinking he's this angry, big Serbian striker, which he's sort of changed over the last 5 or 6 years. My thoughts on Everton this season, you're sort of where I expected Everton to be honest, by keeping Frank Lampard. I think Frank Lampard isn't a very good manager. I think we're seeing that his opening 2 games at Chelsea. I think we saw that at Everton. Yes, he kept you up, but you weren't in the relegation zone when he joined in. So I'm not exactly seeing any progress that Lampard took with the team. You know, Everton fans seem to get behind him started last season, but I think what you're seeing this season is by keeping Frank Lampard and the sort of the recruitment from above over previous campaigns. So Everton, where they are right now, is sort of where I expected them to be at the start of the season. I thought they'd be in a relegation scrap with Fulham. You know, Everton, historically should be where Brighton are, to be honest. Pushing for European places, and that's where they should. But what's happened over the last few years has led to this. And Frank Lampard, for me, I'm a Fulham fan, so I'm not exactly going to be the biggest fan, but I think keeping him on too long was the biggest issue. But getting in Dyche, I'm a massive fan of Sean Dyche. I think the job he did at Burnley was sensational. Obviously, when he first came up, they got relegated, but he came back up and kept them in the league for several years. Got them in 7th place, got them into Europe. I mean, getting it, especially, and if you look at the investment, he didn't really get proper investment until actually the season they went down. The signings of like Maxwell Cornet and Wout Weghorst. But yeah, Dyche, I think, is doing an exceptional job at Everton. All you've got to do is look at his home record so far. So yeah, Dyche, I think he can take Everton back into the top half in the next couple of seasons, and I think if you back him and you get behind him, I think he can really do good things with Everton. And I think Dyche, I don't know why he hasn't been looked at by other clubs, but well done on Everton for snapping him up, and hopefully takes you guys forward, because I really like to see Dyche do a good job at a bigger club than Burnley. The best player for Fulham this season, from the outside, people are probably going to say Mitrovic, but that isn't the case. I know he scored over 10 Premier League goals. I think he's got 13. But I think you've got to look at João Palhinha as Fulham's best player this season, considering the 3 games or 4 games we've had without him. We haven't won. We've lost against Arsenal. We've lost against Newcastle, and in 2 of those games we conceded 8 goals. I think he's one of the best holding midfielders in the Premier League. There's a reason why he's got over 100 tackles. There's a reason why he's made the most tackles in the league out of Europe's top 5 leagues this season. And without him, our team is completely different. So, as much as Mitrovic's goals have been important, you can't look past João Palhinha as our best player. And he pops up with the odd goal. I'm thinking the screamer against Nottingham Forest earlier this season, the header against Brentford. I think he got the winner against, was it Southampton at home? So, yeah, it's got to be João Palhinha for me. Worst player for Fulham this season? Well, he's probably going to be playing on Saturday in Carlos Vinicius. He just doesn't offer anything as close to what Mitrovic does. I know it's hard to always be the backup striker, a bit like the situation Spurs have found themselves in over the last several years of Harry Kane, but he just simply isn't good enough. I'm looking at players even in the Championship like Victor Gyökeres from Coventry, who I think would be a much better option for us to have. Because Mitrovic, yes, he's obviously a key player for us when he's not suspended or when he's fit, but yeah, Carlos Vinicius isn't that, and outside him maybe Dan James. Dan James is quick, but he's not got much else. I think Man United and Leeds fans would tell you the exact same thing. But yeah, for me, just for the amount of games he's played and what he hasn't offered, is Vinicius. Yes, he scored the winner against Chelsea, which you always go down in Fulham folklore for, but outside of that, I think he's probably been our worst player for a player who's played consistently this season. In regard to Fulham's danger man, I think without Mitrovic, I think you're looking at Willian really. Willian and Manor Solomon, but I don't see both of them playing. I see one of them playing because they both sort of play on the same side, on the left-hand side. So I'll go with Willian. He's really sort of rejuvenated his career this season. Obviously, he had the poor stint at Arsenal. He had the poor stint when he went back to Brazil, but he's come back. And when we signed him, I would be a good player to have around the squad. His experience, he should fit in quite well because he knows the area, obviously during his time at Chelsea. But yeah, Willian's been sensational this season for us, just showing his real quality and why he used to be a world-class player and why he's played so many games in the Premier League. So yeah, I think Willian or Manor Solomon, who's coming on loan from Shakhtar Donetsk, had an injury, so it's really only been like a new signing really since January. since the post World Cup. So yeah, whichever one of those two plays on the left hand side, I think is the man you're going to be looking out for, and especially with Seamus Coleman looking like he's out this weekend, those who will be looking to take advantage, I imagine, if Nathan Patterson is the player to come in. For a likely line-up with Fulham, I think we'll be sticking to the system we've played pretty much all season in a 4-2-3-1. You're looking at Bernd Leno in goal. I'd imagine that Kene Tete and Issa Diop will come back into the team. I think for some reason they were just rested last weekend against West Ham. I don't know why. But yeah, looking at Tete at the back, Diop, Ream and Robson as the four defenders. The two in midfield, I imagine, would be João Palhinha and Harrison Reed. And then the three behind Vinicius, I'd imagine up top, would be Willian, Andreas Pereira and Bobby De Cordova-Reid with Vinicius up top. You could argue that Bobby Reid could play up front and then you could play Willian and Solomon if you wanted to, but I don't think away from home at Goodison is the game to be trialling out. I'm thinking of upcoming home games where we can really see if that's a better option than Vinicius. So I'd imagine it'll be Vinicius up top with those three in behind. And looking at a score prediction for this game, I'm not confident for a win, just solely for the fact our record at Goodison Park is atrocious. I know we won there in the lockdown season, but apart from that, I don't remember the last time we won there. You're looking decades ago, because our record at Goodison Park is atrocious. I've been there twice. I think we've lost 3-0 and 3-1. So for a score prediction, to be positive, I'm going to say there's going to be goals in this game, but I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. When we look at who's going to win the league, I always find this question hard to answer, because there's who I want to win the league and who I think is going to win the league. And before last weekend against Liverpool, I would have said I think Arsenal are going to win the league. But I don't think they are anymore, and I don't want them to. I know too many Arsenal fans in London for that to be bearable. They've already been getting carried away all season. So, yeah, I want Man City to win the league, and I think they will, just because they've got Arsenal to play, and Arsenal still got to go away to Newcastle. You would say Chelsea at home's a tough tie, but not the way they're playing at the moment. So, I think Man City are just going to edge it, especially with their superior goal difference. And what is my go-to takeaway order? Well, coming from a half Hong Kong background, I'm always going to go with a Chinese. Probably going to go with king prawn chow mein, Singapore noodles and crispy chili beef with egg fried rice. That is the go-to takeaway order in the Betts household. But I've been Don Betts from the Fulhamish podcast, looking ahead to the game at Goodison Park on the weekend.